Happy Friday, you guys. Hi. So, how are you guys? Oh, you know what? My puppy, Banks, he thinks I'm talking to him. So, you guys, I asked you to look up Huey Long and find out who he was. So, I hope that you did. So, I'm probably going to post a question and ask you to give me 3 examples why Miss Jane would have liked Huey P. Long. Okay? All right. He was a real person, so you should be able to find it. So anyway, we're reading Huey P. Long, his chapter, on page 158. And remember, if you're doing this, right, I'm giving you hints on what you can put in your journal entries, or, if you're doing honors class, if you're doing the post-it, you know what to do. Okay. I just ran up the stairs. I'm so sorry. I just ran all the way up the stairs. I made like a whole bunch of masks today. Look I made this one wrong. It's so awesome, right? Right? But how are you going to wear it? Right? Because you'd have to wear it like this, and it's sideways, so I have to fix it, and that happens because I made like 30 of them today. All right, I just put them out for a friend. All right, you ready? Here we go. Huey Long came in the year after the high water. Nothing could happen to the poor black man or the poor black man, no matter what they say. Oh, they got all kinds of stories about him now. He was this and he was that, nothing but a dictator who did this and that to the people. When I hear them talk like that, I think, yeah, you ought to been here 25, 30 years ago. You ought to been here when poor people had nothing. You wouldn't be running off at the mouth, so, ha! Even them children go around here saying what they got to respect Long for. Didn't he used to call our people nigger? I agree. He did call the colored people. But when he said it, he said, "Hear a book? Go read your name." When the other ones said, they said, "Here a sack, go pick that cotton." So do you guys see the difference, right? So when he was, and I agree, it's not the best word to use. I get that. But when he was using it, it wasn't as derogatory in Miss Jane's eyes, because he was referring to them the way that people referred to blacks in that time period, but he wasn't giving them the disrespect of the other example, like, here's a bag of cotton, go picking. He didn't do that, right? He's like, read a book and learn how to spell your name. He's teaching them to do things that will make them better, okay? And that's why she liked him. Okay, so you got to remember that. If you didn't know, he was white. And so I think that also says a lot for Jane, because Jane doesn't really discriminate. She tells Ned early on the kind of people who are, in her eyes, a nigger. And she says that it's like the lowest of the lowest black man who can't think beyond himself, who can't do things for others. And she says, like, he's the lowest of the low. And so she differentiates for us. And now she's showing us again the difference between when whites referred to a black person with that, the difference in the construct of the word. Okay. All right, so bottom 158. They don't know what the poor people went through. They think they always had a school bus. They always had a school. I can tell you, when poor people didn't get 2 months of school a year, and to even get that little bit, they had to walk 5 or 6 miles. When they think the rich people, what they think the rich people kill Long for? Because he called the colored people? No, they killed him for helping the poor black and the poor white, because you're not supposed to help the poor. Let the poor work. Let the poor fight in your wars. Let them die. But you're not supposed to help the poor. Okay, so this is the other reason why. she likes him is because he doesn't differentiate between who's black and who's white, right? Who's a minority, who's not a minority. If you're all poor, he wants to help all of you. And that's what she liked about him. He didn't discriminate. He wanted everybody to get ahead. So, of course, who's going to kill Huey Long, right? The white supremacist. Now, what they say Dr. Weiss killed Long. So that's the man who killed Huey P. Long. If you did your Google search, you knew this. Well, they ain't going to make me believe that. One say he killed Long because Long said Dr. Weiss's wife, granddaddy, had nigger blood in his vein. Well, they got white people around here who'll kill you for saying much less than that. But they ain't going to make me believe that's why Long died. I know them rich people got them guards to kill Long. All the poor know that. Telling the poor he was killed because he said the old judge had blood in his veins. They said that because they thought the poor might rise. They knowed how much the poor loved him, and they said that to keep them from rising. Well, they didn't fool the poor people, and they don't need to think they did. I remember the night they shot him. I remember it well. I was down the quarters sitting up with Grace Turner. She wasn't feeling too good, and me, Olive Giroux, and Lena Washington was sitting up with her. We was inside talking when Etienne Bowie came by and knocked on the end of the gallery. I went to the door to see what he wanted, and he told me what had happened. He said, "Jane, guess what? They done shot Long." I said, "Don't tell me that, Etienne. Don't tell me that. No, don't tell me that now." He said, "Yes, they shot him. He's not dead, but they fear for his life." He said he had just seen Manuel Ruffin, and Manuel had heard it over the radio in Bayonne. Manuel got his car and come home because he was scared the white people might start war over this. Etienne and Manuel was going through the quarters telling the people what had happened. They tried to get Just Thomas, so that's his name, his first name is Just Thomas, the head deacon, to go ring the church bell. But Just told them he wasn't getting in white folks' business. Grace told Etienne to come in and have some coffee, and before you knowed it, the house was full of people. Aunt Gilly got down on his knees and told us to pray for Long. But do you think they was going to let him go on living? Not after what he had done for the poor. Notice the word for the poor, not to the poor, for the poor. Now, you mean to tell me, out of all those doctors you got in the hospital, not one of these doctors knows what he's supposed to do? If to go in the front or the back of a man to keep him from bleeding to death? You trying to tell me that? What you got them there for if they don't know how to operate? No, they didn't want to stop the bleeding. They had paid them guards to kill him, and now they sure wasn't going to save his life in no hospital. I wouldn't be surprised if one day they don't find out them doctors didn't help kill him in that place. Look like every man that pick up the cross for the poor must end that way. Fabulous ending to the chapter. So, if you're a Christian, we are just ending the week of Easter, right? And this is, what do you call that? Is that a metaphor? Because there's no like or as. Oh, look like every man pick up the cross for the poor must end that way. And so basically she's sort of saying like the Jesus piece here that he was doing something good for the people, for the poor people, right? Because the poor have nothing. So in this time period, it's before the Great Depression. And so I don't believe there's like welfare. I have no idea what else I was going to say. Not all those benefits that the poor have. So the poor are pretty much like on their own in this time period, and probably especially down in the South. So like we have services. My grandmother was very poor, and she lived in housing in East Boston. And I know after my grandfather died, my dad was 6 years old when my grandfather died, so I never knew him. And my uncle told me that the older brothers worked to help keep my dad in school, and my grandmother worked. because the way the welfare worked back then is it would supplement whatever money my grandfather brought home. And my grandfather worked for a company called Bethlehem Steel. I come from like a whole world of tradespeople, just so you know. My sister and I were the only college educated ones. But he worked for Bethlehem Steel, like I really don't know, like metal fabrication kind of stuff, right? And so he got sick and he died. So when he died, there was nothing there. And so my grandmother had to work, and then welfare supplemented what my grandfather would have been bringing home. But it wasn't enough. It wasn't like, oh, he's bringing home $100 a week, we're going to give you that much. It wasn't that. It was a little bit to help. And I mean, I don't know a whole lot about that time period, but what you have to realize is that the benefits that the poor people have, I can say from my life on, so from like the 60s and 70s on, is really fabulous. And I've been watching Governor Baker every day, listening to just all the things that they're doing to help the homeless, to help the people that are in shelters, to make sure that people are getting food, right? Because we have food inequity. So there's so many things that are out there, but it wasn't always like that. And so Jane's telling us that Huey Long was one of those people. Like, we would like Huey Long because he helped the poor. And we like people that help the poor because it helps them, right? And that's the good thing. Like, I saw how it helped my grandmother. So she's saying that these are, even though they're white doctors and Huey Long was white, that they're not going to want to save him, even though they take that Hippocratic oath. She's saying they don't want to save him because he wants to help us. We're the poor people. Like, you think the man living in the big house over there, the head of the plantation guy, you think that Mr. Sampson wants us to be taken care of? No, they want to keep us down, right? And so that's what she's talking about here. So she equates Huey Long to Jesus because Jesus helped the poor as well. And Jesus tells his people, help the poor, right? That's your duty as a person. So reading makes me tired. I'm so sorry. So you can actually write a few things. You can do a journal entry about Huey Long and pick one thing that you thought he was really great at. You can look and see who killed him and whether or not that person was ever put on trial for it and how the trial went. You can do the connection to the Jesus metaphor that she has in here on the cross. You can also connect how Huey Long helped the poor in his lifetime versus bring it to your own community, how your own community is doing things to help the poor during this coronavirus, okay? And I am under 15 minutes. Oh my God, I didn't talk that long. Bye. Go do your journal entries.